at the figures from the HSE's website alone, we can see that since 2008, there's been a 32% increase in the prosecutions of the number of individuals who are being prosecuted under the Health and Safety at Work Act and similar legislation. And today I want to look at when are people being prosecuted, why are they being prosecuted, to see if there's some kind of trend that we can ascertain. Now, one thing I would say is categorically there is no specific policy at the HSE to increase the prosecutions against individuals. So why are there an increase? Well, let's start off by looking at when can an individual be prosecuted? Well, under the Health and Safety at Work Act, as we'll be familiar, there's 4 provisions which can result in an individual being prosecuted, as well as the company who is potentially the duty holder. We've got employees, directors and managers, and then there's other individuals which are lumped in under sections 8 and 36. And of course there's also the common law offence of gross negligence manslaughter, which individuals can still be prosecuted under in relation to fatalities. But the HSE's policy is quite clear. They will not prosecute individuals in all circumstances. They're going to look at the benefits of prosecution, the particulars of the offence, so it'll be very much on a case-by-case basis. And they'll also look at the resources that it would take to prosecute an individual and, of course, the potential outcome. So, when can employees be prosecuted? Well, under Section 7, there's 4 key points that must be met. So the criteria is 4 points in order for an individual to be prosecuted. Firstly, and this does not take a lawyer to tell you this, the person needs to be employed. And they also need to be in the course of their employment. Sorry, my secretary after 14 years still can't read my handwriting. And either the individual has not taken reasonable care of someone's health and safety. Now that could be another employee, or it could be their own health and safety. Or the individual employee has not cooperated with their employer so far as reasonably practical to allow that employer to comply with its statutory duty. So what is reasonable care? Obviously, it's a lesser standard than reasonable practicability that we find under Section 2 and 3 and other provisions of the Health and Safety at Work Act. But what is absolutely key in determining when an individual will be prosecuted will be the facts and circumstances in each case. So obviously the starting point is going to be, what did the employee do and how does that fit in with their responsibilities? But they won't look, the HSE won't look at that in isolation. They'll look at other aspects too, because the employee is not expected to compensate for the employer's failings. So for example, as well as looking at the evidence against the employee, they'll look at the public interest test. So what were the company's compliance systems? Were they robust? Were they being followed? Yes, the responsibility of the employee is important, but was this a one-off act where he'd acted on a frolic of his own? Or is it a widespread practice amongst other employees? So for example, if you're dealing with a production line, was it quite normal to lift up guarding and fiddle about with the insides? Was this a well-known accepted practice? Had there been previous warnings, either to other employees or to the individual concerned? And then there's those kind of fluffy factors about whether it will be seen or perceived as being a proportionate and fair step to take. So what we find is that in the last 5 years, there's been 55 prosecutions of individuals. And one of the most recent ones that we've seen is a prosecution of an individual called Michael Cunningham. And although it's for an offence which occurred about 3 or 4 years ago, in this case, Michael Cunningham operated an excavator. He failed to ensure that the safety pin had been attached to the bucket which was being put onto the excavator's arm. and he went ahead and lifted the bucket over the heads of others working on the site. So in that case, you can kind of see why a prosecution was necessary of the individual. So the company was prosecuted for its failings in relation to its systems, but also the individual was seen to have responsibilities that they'd failed to follow.